Self-inquiry is an ancient teaching. I'd say it basically enhances our spiritual perspective. It's easy to learn and can free us from a lot of unnecessary suffering. In other words, it just makes your life better. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses that you didn't even know you needed. But now that you have them, you can't imagine life without them. In the next few minutes, I'll explain what self-inquiry is, why it works, and how you can benefit from it pretty quickly. There's a famous quote that's attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. It says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." It's a very popular quote. You can find it pretty much anywhere, especially on the internet. But did you know it's not what actually was said by Gandhi? What he actually said was this: if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As we change our own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards us. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness. As we change our own nature, Gandhi said. Note that he did not say, as we change our own thinking or attitude. He said, as we change our own nature. But how do we do that? How do we change our very nature? What does he mean by that? Well, that's where self-inquiry comes in. Self-inquiry has been called the direct path to self-realization. It doesn't take years of spiritual work, but it can produce some very profound results pretty quickly. In fact, you can get started right after this video if you want. Understanding self-inquiry is both subtle and powerful, so it's easier to experience than explain. After working with it for some years now, I wanted to find a simple way to describe it. I got tired of drawing on napkins. So I came up with a kind of a map, an illustration, to help people see what self-inquiry wants us to see. People have known about self-inquiry since the early part of the 20th century. But the principle that it is based on, that goes way back in time. We literally don't even know how far back. Self-inquiry starts with you. The you generally consider yourself to be. If I ask you, who are you? More likely than not, you're not really going to have much trouble telling me. Let's take a look at the map. That little circle in the center represents who or what most of us think we are. In our lives, when we begin learning more and more about spirituality, one of the first things we learn is that each of us is, in truth, a child of God, or an emanation of spirit. Now, you may hear a little voice inside your head right now that's saying something like, "Oh, I already know this. I've known for a long time that I'm a manifestation of the divine." But please, watch this video all the way through anyway. It's not that you know it, it's how you know it. Language can only get near describing spiritual things. Explanations, definitions, workshops, seminars, books, all that stuff can only point to spiritual truths. We have to experience the spiritual, not just learn about it. And so what we think we know about who we really are might just actually be a sneaky little trick that our egos are playing on us. Let's just take a second here and clear up a couple of things about the ego, so we're all on the same page. First of all, I'm not talking about ego in the popular sense, like, boy, that guy sure has a big ego, so full of himself. No, I'm talking about the mind, the psyche, what's going on inside us. Secondly, the ego is not a bad thing. It's not a villain. We don't want to get rid of the ego. It just tells us a story about who we are, and we usually believe that story. The ego is actually essential to our very survival. It strives to protect us, to keep us safe. That's its purpose. But sometimes it overprotects, and that can make a lot of trouble for us. So it's not a bad idea to be aware of what your ego is doing. And we'll talk more about the ego later. We humans generally see ourselves as persons, physical beings that live in a world we perceive with our senses, an image of reality that we believe in with our minds. We can call this reality the material realm. Well, this material realm is like a collection of perceptions, like feelings, sensations, and even our thoughts. Yes, our thoughts are just as much a part of the material universe as our fingers, our toes. All of our perceptions, everything we perceive, are not what's real. They're interpretations. We don't perceive what's actually out there. We just perceive a conclusion about what's out there. For example, over time, we humans have learned that our vision, what our eyes tell us is out there, is actually just a bunch of photons bouncing into the back of our eyeballs. It took us a long time to figure that out. Our brains translate that activity into images of what's out there. That, along with all our other senses, is what we then conclude is actually out there. And we call that reality. But it's a pretty incomplete system. Although everything we perceive in this material realm seems very, very real, and we depend on it very strongly, we now understand it's not reality itself. It's just a kind of glimpse of reality. Even today, our very best scientists and philosophers, they still don't agree on what reality actually is. But here's the kicker. Our thoughts are also subject to interpretations. Our mind can be thought of as just like any of our other senses. And just like any of our senses, our own thoughts can't always be relied on to tell us what's real. None of our senses can do that. We don't see the whole page of the map, so we're not aware of it. Just as our eyes can't see all the light in what we call the visible spectrum, ultraviolet light, infrared light, our human eyeballs just don't collect all the information. No matter how beautiful the rainbow, we can only ever see a small slice of it. Who we perceive ourselves to be in this material realm is only a small slice of who we really are. And who we really are is what Gandhi calls our true nature. That's why, on this map, everything we think we are is represented only by that small circle in the center. Notice that inside this circle, that's where the mind is, including our human consciousness and unconsciousness. They are both on the very edge of human understanding. Our ego has us believing that the I, the me, the thing we believe ourselves to be, only exists inside this circle of limited awareness. Generally speaking, that circle is really all most of us know. We can't see outside it with our senses. So we think that the circle itself is reality, that it is all there is. But that is, of course, only another short-sighted interpretation. To change our true nature, we must first look outside of the circle. We must become aware of it. And how do we do that? We can use self-inquiry. Up to now, most of us humans have come to rely on a false image of ourselves, a false I. And we live with that false image from cradle to grave. That's why most of us think of ourselves as a person. Like when I say I am Sean, or I am happy, or I am sad, I am a father, or even I'm going to the store. But all the while, outside the circle, there is a larger, much bigger I. And that true I, that's our true nature. Unlike the ego's false I, the true I is not a person. Persons are temporary things, as is everything that's in the material realm. Our true self, this true I, is not temporary. In fact, it's eternal. The entities that we ourselves truly are, outside the illusionary circle of the material realm, were never born and can never die. But the truth is, as you can see on this map, the ego itself actually resides within an imaginary bubble, so it can't see outside the bubble. Nevertheless, we are not our thoughts, and that's a fact. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You can actually prove that fact for yourself anytime. In fact, let's do it right now. At this very moment, I think it's safe to assume you are thinking. Yes? So ask yourself, right now, who is perceiving the thoughts I am thinking? I mean, I know that I am thinking, and I often know what I am thinking, especially if I pay attention. I know I's thoughts. So think about that. That creates a pretty thorny problem of logic. This little exercise clearly demonstrates the fact that we perceive our own thoughts. So, who is doing the perceiving? Who is this that's aware of my thoughts? Well, obviously, I am the perceiver. I am aware of my thoughts. So, who am I? That I is the self. That's what Gandhi referred to as our nature. It's where we connect with God or the universe or consciousness, whatever you prefer to call it. It's really nameless. You see, you simply can't touch the tip of your finger with that same finger. Your own eye can't look into your own eye, at least not without a mirror. Your eyeball can see many things, but that same eyeball can't see directly back into the same eyeball. It's exactly the same way that we can't be the thinker of a thought and the observer of that same thought at the same time. This forms the very core revelation of self-inquiry. We are inquiring if I, number one, am my thoughts. Who is the other I number two, who is aware of them? In other words, who am I? This is always where self-inquiry leads us, back to that unanswerable question. Self-inquiry is a truth-teller, a revealer of what actually is. We are told Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Well, this little map shows us a picture of the truth. It liberates us. It sets us free from the ego's inability to see. This liberation is the promise of self-inquiry. For the source of all our suffering stems from the false ego. The false ego-generated belief that we are our thoughts. When in truth, we are something far greater. We are the I Am itself. Not being aware of this truth is the cause of all human limitation and suffering. But becoming aware of this truth liberates us from all that. It frees us from the ego trap that is the bubble. Maybe that's why you're watching this video. Maybe you are learning this truth for yourself right now. Only you can know that, and it can only come as an inexplicable act of divine grace. Which brings us back to the map. It's important to understand that this map, like all maps, is only a representation of the territory it's showing us. It is not the territory itself. Self-inquiry is not self-answer. We just ask the question, who am I? the inquiry, and let whatever arises reveal itself to us. Looking for the correct answer, especially out there, is just another illusion of the ego. With self-inquiry, you can awaken to the fact that your ego has no real power. It just lulls you into a kind of sleep, and you're probably having a bad dream. So, knowing this, when you're ready, you can just wake up. But nobody can be awake for us. We have to wake up for ourselves. You know, others can take us to the gym, but they can't do our push-ups for us. One way or another, we have to experience the truth for ourselves. You have to experience the spiritual awareness self-inquiry points you to, and then abide in it. Make it a part of the new awareness of your true nature. The ancient sages of what we now call India have known and taught about the truth principles of self-inquiry for centuries. Countless people have experienced this marvelous spiritual open secret to their lasting joy. They have left behind the illusion of separation in the material realm and the idea that they are their thoughts. And so can you. In the early years of the 20th century, one of these sages, Bhagavad Sri Ramana Maharshi, began teaching a simplified version of self-inquiry for modern people. He began teaching how to liberate ourselves through experience from the ego and false mind identification. Remember, it's only experience that leads to actual change. You can't learn it from anything or anyone outside yourself. One does not convert to self-inquiry from something. It's not a religion. It doesn't matter what other spiritual path you're on, you can easily just add self-inquiry to it. So there's a link at the end of this video that will show you exactly, step by step, how to practice self-inquiry. You'll find that integrating that into your daily life will soon change your nature. And then, as Gandhi promised, you will experience the attitude of the world changing towards you. I really believe that now, more than ever, the world could really use this teaching. And I'm not alone. For more information about self-inquiry and other great spiritual but not religious information, just go to my website at seanfurlong.org. The link is in the description below. I also look forward to any comments or questions you have, also down below. Lastly, if you found this video valuable, share it with somebody. Let's not keep it an open secret any longer. Here's the link to a free step-by-step self-inquiry guidance. Go back there as often as you like, but practice self-inquiry every day. Real soon, you won't need outside guidance anymore. See you again soon.